just checked my YouTube feed and it is working. We have 12 watching now. I'm going to mute myself and turn it over to Tim.
All right, we did some switching around. We're back up.
Tim, you're muted.
I muted because of the fact that I turned the meeting over.
Those who can't hear me is because I wasn't saying anything. But thank you. I do appreciate this. All right. So it is now 6:30. I am going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to go over the same guidelines that we went over for non-public. We had a non-public this evening at 6 o'clock where we discussed personnel and negotiations. So the date is May 18th, 2020. This is a 6:30 p.m. regular school board meeting of the Franklin School Board. We have adhered to the strict limit to 10 on-site participants or less per the governor's order. Community members may email questions, comments prior to the meeting to the superintendent at dlagallo@gm.sau18.org. Please include name. All questions and comments will be read into the minutes and will be addressed by the board. During the public participation portion of this meeting, community members may call in with questions at 266-9833. All right, so the meeting's now is on. Kathy, you are all set with all the members and all the administration, everybody that's online with us tonight?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Well, you want me to go ahead and
Go ahead, Kathy.
roll call, or you want me to go ahead and roll call the board members?
Yes, please.
Okay. Susan Hallett Cook. Yes. Chris Nealon.
Yes.
Deb Brown. Yes. Delaney Carrier. Cecile Cormier. Tim Dow.
Yes.
Jeff Savory. Paul Doucette. Scott Burns.
Okay, all members are present for tonight's meeting. All right, if we could just stand, those that are here, and salute for the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, before we start in on anything else, we're going to take a moment of silence tonight. If you haven't heard, former counselor and school board member Steve Barton passed away towards the end of last week. Steve served on the school board for many years and was a city councilor for a lot of years too, and gave a lot of time and commitment and service to this community. He lived here most of his life, and his two girls graduated from Franklin High School. So at this time, I'd like to give a moment of silence to Councilor Steve Barton. you, everybody. Kathy, were all the meetings posted as per required?
Yes,
Thank you, Kathy.
you're welcome.
Superintendent Legal, do we have any emails that have come to you in public participation?
He's on mute.
Nothing has come in yet.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Legal. Again, if any public out there has any public comments or participation during our meeting, you can call in at 266-9833 and speak to Superintendent Legallo. I will now close that portion and go to recognitions. Does anybody on board or within our Zoom have any recognitions this evening?
I have one.
Superintendent Legallo.
I would like to recognize Amber Rue, our intervention counselor at the middle school. If you saw the article that was written regarding what she does at the middle school for our kids every day. I just thought it was a tremendous article and really reflects what she does for our students at FMS.
Thank you, Superintendent Legallo. I'd also like to recognize all the teachers that participated last Wednesday in the parade that followed around our food service buses and were able to get out and see the students. I'd also like to recognize the staffs at all three schools that have done social media videos to reach out to their students and be able to talk to the students through a video, or at least say hi to them and let them know if they were thinking about them. All three schools have done this, so again, to the staff at all three schools, thank you very much for the continued effort and continued time that you put in to make sure that our students get to see you in one way or another, so thank you.
Tim, if I may, I'd like to recognize the PSS staff. They took a portion of their Sunshine Fund and made a donation to the staff who is working so diligently to feed our children every day. And so it was just a small recognition, a cash recognition to each one of them for the hard work they're doing.
Thank you, Sue. Are there any other recognitions? Any other buddy within the Zoom have any recognitions? All right. All right, we're going to go on to agenda item 4, approval of board meeting minutes for April 20th, 2020. I need a motion for that.
I move to approve the board minutes of April 20th, 2020, as written.
Paul Doucette has made the motion to accept the board minutes as written for April 20th, 2020. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Cecile Cormier. Do I have any discussion?
I just have a question,
Go ahead, Cecile.
regarding page 7 that, Kathy had mentioned, and it's regarding, the directory, the thing that you had to sign, there's an empty space, and I'm not quite sure what the empty space is for.
Kathy, are you able to answer that?
You know what I'm talking about?
I'm going to go on to see if I can pull up the minutes. Hold on one moment. Sorry.
I didn't print the page, so.
I think it might have just been where I had to sign or...
Is that possible?
Sorry, my computer is being slow.
I don't do it. Page 7?
Yeah.
And you said page 7?
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting there. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah, the, policies,
Where's the book?
oh, okay, yes, there's more to the motion, and she just.
Oh, because I wasn't sure who that was going to be submitted to.
Dan, do you remember the thing I signed off on, who's that being submitted to?
I have to look at it. I don't have it in front of me, and I can't get off the computer to look.
Okay.
So I'm sure I'll find it and fix it. That's easy enough to do.
Yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
Tim, at the last board meeting, you signed something for the SAP grant,
Yes.
or New Hampshire Charter. It was one of the grants that you're working on for Autism School Wellness.
Right, okay, thank you, yes. I believe it was for the grant, Cecile, to be looked at.
It was blank, so.
Okay, so Kathy and Dan will meet with that and put in that information.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you, Cecile. Are there any other questions pertaining to the minutes from April 20th?
Well done.
Seeing none, I need a roll call vote.
Okay. Susan Hallett Cook?
Yes.
Chris Nealon?
Yes.
Deb Brown?
Yes.
Delaney Courier?
Yes.
Cecile Cormier?
Yes.
Tim Dow?
Yes.
Jeff Savory?
Yes.
Paul Doucette?
Yes.
Scott Burns?
Yes.
They are approved unanimously. Agenda item 5 for this evening's old business. I'm going to turn it over for our financial report. Good evening, Jefferson.
Hey everyone, can you hear me well? All right, good. Hopefully the internet will hold up. So I had put all the final financial reports into the Google Drive. I hope you had a chance to review those. Since the last board meeting, we have unencumbered about $10,241 on the expenditure side of our budget due to recalculation of our transportation expenses, the changes regarding spring coaching and those sports. We did have some other increase in costs related to facilities and special education also. As we move forward, this could improve also as we get final invoices on some of the stuff, because certain things aren't happening, certain transportations that were specialized, especially for out-of-district children. And the out-of-district services, though, some of the places are still providing services to the children, so we don't know exactly what the cost rate on that will be, and that will affect our future invoices for the rest of the year. But as we see that, we'll be able to make adjustments as we're doing. Also, homeless transportation is not something that is occurring right now. So that could improve our budget in that particular perspective. On the revenue side, we have received additional E-rate funding, interest accrual, and indirect cost revenues. Our revenues have gone up by $29,418. And we expect certainly the indirect cost and interest to continue. Rebecca, Kathy, and I had a meeting with MSP, who is our third-party administrator, regarding Medicaid funding. That way we'd get a better sense of how the Medicaid reimbursements are working, and for me, certainly to better understand the process. We are hoping to see services being reimbursed very soon. As with the emergency ruling, a lot of new procedures had to be put into place, and it's still causing a lot of delay in getting those pieces up and running. Almost all the districts are dealing with that issue. The good news is that everything that we have been doing for this past year will eventually get reimbursed. It's just a matter of when those items will start coming in and will we start seeing that funding. I've also saved in the 2021 budget folder on the Google Drive a document called the 2020 and 2021 Franklin Master Budget. I presented this to the Finance Committee at our last meeting. This was a document that I put together that I was hoping to present to the City Council. The Finance Committee liked the layout, and so if you wanted to take an opportunity whenever you had a chance to go in and review that for the budgetary information that can be provided to the City Council. Obviously, the administrators, principals, and special ed director are putting together their PowerPoint for what they will be presenting to the City Council. We're still working on that. One last thing that I wanted to talk about is, so we have the asbestos abatement project at Paul Smith Elementary School. We put out the asbestos abatement piece for bid. the newspaper, and we actually contacted a few companies also. The only company that responded was the one that had done our abatement last year. At the cost of the abatement, which affects the cafeteria and a storage room in that area, would come in at $14,200. Even though there's only one bid, though I do need the board, just for protocol, to approve that a bid so that we can move forward and get it on the schedule. I don't know if, Jim, you want to have the board do that?
Who was the vendor, Jefferson?
It's Peniel Enterprises. And I've spoken to them many times at ASBO meetings and Tri-State ASBO conferences, so I'm familiar with the work. Plus, they did the abatement that we had to do last year.
Right. Thank you, Jefferson. All right, obviously, based on we want to move this along, this abatement, and get this taken care of at the high school, at the schools, I would ask that someone make a motion to accept the bid as presented and that we move forward. So moved by Paul Doucette. Do we have a second? Second by Scott Burns. I need a roll call vote. Excuse me, discussion first. We have any discussion on this? Okay, Chris is saying no. Deb, are you all set?
Do you have an anticipated start date for this?
I'd have to refer to Toby on that if he's aware. I know that they wanted to see where we were with the bid process as far as to get into the schedule. So, Toby, would you be able to answer that question?
Yeah, they got to put a notice to the state, which is a 10-day minimum notice. And right now they're just waiting for us to get in, let them know this is approved. And then they'll work on getting us into a schedule. So we got to get into there. But it's a minimum of 10 days waiting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, Deb? You all set?
All set.
Thank you, Deb. Susan? Susan's all set. Thank you, Susan. Cecile? Cecile's all set. Paul Doucette? Paul Doucette's okay. Scott Burns? Okay. Jeff? All set. Delaney? No questions. He's all set, and I'm all set. So we can take a roll call vote now.
Susan Howard Cook? Yes. Chris Nealon?
Yes.
Deb Brown?
Yes.
Delaney Carrier? Cecile Cormier? Tim Dow?
Yes?
Jeff Savory? Paul Doucette? Scott Burns?
Passes unanimously. That can go ahead and go out, Jefferson.
All right, thank you very much. That's all I've had for everybody tonight. If anybody has any questions, just let me know.
All right, thank you, Jefferson. As Jefferson said, if you have any questions for Jefferson after this meeting is over, unless you have some right now, and I don't see anybody. Delaney has a question.
Sure.
Delaney wants all the. Jefferson, could you hear him?
No, I couldn't hear him.
Okay, he's looking to see if you have a sense yet of where we're going to be, where we're going to end with everything at the end of the year, with everything that's going on right now.
It's kind of challenging. I had put together at the last finance committee meeting projected fund balance. As of right now, we had about, just double check this real quick. Because I think it's going to keep improving because there's a lot of variables going on, especially with things that aren't happening that have in the past. We still have a lot of services that we are continuing to provide, especially on the special education side. But certain things in transportation are not happening, so that will improve that piece also. So we're going to have some discussion on that. the last meeting I had approximately so now my file disappeared on me. All right, I'm gonna go to where I have it else. Okay, so I had projected at this point about $364,000, $500 fund balance, of which $286,000 of that is currently budgeted in our next year budget, which leaves an additional $78,500 approximately left over at this point, unspoken for.
Go ahead, Delaney. What are we doing on the federal estate reimbursement on the remote learning process?
So we just got a bunch of documentation from the Department of Ed related to the CARES Act. The process is actually very similar to the grants that we normally do through the state, Title I or Title II. We have to do a program assurance form, which is something Dan and I will be discussing. We also have to do an application form, which we will have to discuss what we specifically want to focus on with the CARES Act, items that we're looking to use that money for. So there's a lot of paperwork for us to go through and things that we have to be focused on what we're allowed to spend that money on at this point.
So is that gonna be a positive for our 2021 budget?
Well, it's looking at a separate pot of money, like a grant. So it's not something that we project into our budget, right? Or as additional revenue into our budget. It's like a federal fund grant. So it's what we decide that we're going to spend it on. We haven't really narrowed that down, although we've talked a lot of things about like seeing what our Chromebook status will be once we get all those returned, whether we need to purchase any Chromebooks for replacement, if there were any additional food service costs, such as the distribution of the food service program that we needed to hope have the CARES Act funds cover for that, and things of that nature, any salaries or tutoring or anything else like that, any remote learning costs that we've incurred that we want that money to cover. It's hard to say whether or not that will have any direct effect on our budget going forward, though.
All right, he's good with that. Anything else, Delaney? No, Delaney has nothing else. Jefferson, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, again, if anybody comes up with any questions or anything that you're not sure of dealing with the either the budget, the CARE Act, send a email to the superintendent and to Jefferson, and they will both, either both of them or one of them will get back and answer your questions for you. All right, do we have any committee reports this evening? Yep.
Yeah, the Finance Committee met on May 7th and reviewed all the expenditures that are being presented to the board in their folders tonight. We also discussed our next meeting on June 11th. We've been apprised of the projects that are going forward for the buildings and grounds, and have asked our questions for that we were able to get our answers for, which I'm sure Toby will relate on a little bit later on. The negotiation team also met to discuss the MOUs that you'll be voting on a little bit later on in the board meeting.
Thank you, Deb. I don't, was there anybody else who had any committee meetings over the last month? All right, before we move on, Toby, I'm gonna, if you guys want to touch base on, some of the projects, basically the, middle school and high school, tiring projects that are gonna be starting up, if you can just let the board know, how we're doing on that.
Actually, we're waiting to get on a schedule. Looks like the 1st of June was last I was told for the paving. That's really what I'm waiting for now.
Porter hasn't come out with a date for you yet?
No,
All right,
they were estimating the beginning of June.
okay. On the lock projects, those still look to be on schedules, Toby?
Yeah, July. Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks, Toby.
Thank you.
Okay, that is all we have for old business today, so we're gonna move to agenda item 6, which is our new business, which is our update from the superintendent.
Hey, thank you, Chairman Dow. So the first item on the agenda is to talk a little bit about strategic plan moving forward. We have scheduled a meeting for the strategic, do you want to recuse yourself, Paul? Yeah.
Yeah, that, please help when we review.
So we are going to hold a communication/strategic plan meeting on Thursday evening. The agenda will be posted tomorrow. Typically, we would be scheduling a full strategic plan annual review with the entire strategic plan team, like we do every June. Clearly, we're not able to do that at this point. I did talk to our facilitator, Lynn Healy, about it. We are thinking the best course of action at this point is to postpone until the fall, trying to reconvene that group. It probably makes sense for the school board to consider doing a meeting, maybe in August, to take a look at that plan. I think the committee can talk about it on Thursday and come up with some recommendations for the full board at our June 1st meeting as to how to proceed. We are well ahead of our schedule for the strategic plan. We're in a very good place, but what we want to make sure we don't do is not move forward because of the circumstances that we're in. There's still lots of things that we can be doing and moving forward on. So my intention is to talk with the committee Thursday to come up with a recommendation for the full board on how to move forward in terms of rebooting the plan for next year. So I didn't know if the board had any questions about that.
Chris, do you have any questions? Okay, thank you, Chris. Deb, do you have any questions?
No.
Thank you, Deb. Susan? Susan has no questions. Cecile? Paul has recused himself from the discussion. Stopper? Got no questions. Jeff? Jeff has no questions. Delaney? Delaney's good, and I'm good, so we'll move on from the strategic plan.
Okay, I'll report back at our next meeting on that. Next item is the Franklin High School Boosters Club was kind enough to purchase 2 outdoor sheds for our athletic teams at the high school, and they cost approximately $1,200, so I need a motion to accept.
Motion was made by Jeff to accept, second by Scott Burns. Do I have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll take a roll call vote.
Susan Hallett Cook? Yes. Chris Nealon?
Yes.
Deb Brown?
Yes.
Tim Dow?
Yes.
Delaney Currier?
Yes.
Cecile Cormier?
Yes.
Jeff Savory?
Yes.
Paul Doucette?
Yes.
And Scott Burns?
Yes. Unanimous, it is accepted. Thank you on behalf of the Boosters Club for these sheds that have been donated to our school district.
Okay, I have 4 resignations for the board to accept tonight. I have Beth Page, out-of-district coordinator, special education. Rebecca Dunkley, guidance counselor at Paul Smith School. Tanya Hannigan, classroom teacher at Franklin Middle School. And Amber Rue, intervention counselor at Franklin Middle School.
Okay, so I need a motion to accept these resignations with regret.
I move that we accept the resignation with regret.
Paul Doucette has made the motion to accept these 4 resignations with regret. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Scott Burns. Do I have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I need a roll call vote.
Susan Hallett Cook? Yes. Chris Nealon?
Yes.
Deb Brown?
Yes.
Tim Dow?
Yes.
Delaney Currier?
Yes.
Cecile Cormier? Jeff Savory?
Yes.
Paul Doucette?
Yes.
Scott Burns?
Yes.
Okay. Next up, I have 1 retirement to report. One of our CODAs, Certified Occupational Therapy Assistants, Jackie Vatchel, has been with us for 30 years, will be retiring at the end of June. I wanted to acknowledge that. Next up is our extended school year. We've been talking about this for several months. We were hoping to hear from the governor on this week or last week, and we have not heard yet. We're anticipating him coming out at some point this week. On Friday's commissioners call with the superintendents, he did a poll with the superintendents about remote learning for the summer, and over 55% of the districts have already made the decision to go remote for the summer, knowing that they need to start the planning process and getting that in order. In your packet, you had some survey information from parents regarding ESY and also some tutoring that we'll talk about in a little bit. The admin team met today to discuss this. We are getting to that point where we need to make this decision so we can plan. We're pretty much united that we believe that this should be remote. For the summertime, we don't see a lot changing between now and July when it starts. I suppose we could hear what the governor has to say this week to make this decision June 1st. We need to, although I don't know that that would change any of our movements in terms of where we're at, what we need to do. Rebecca, I don't know if you'd like to weigh in on this and tell them about how many kids we have and what it takes to put this program in place.
So currently we have 72 district-wide and then 16 out-of-district and other LEA, which would be our charter school kiddos. The staff required, it'd be a lot of support staff, speech, OT, PT, case managers, navigating buildings. The transportation is provided for most of the ESY kiddos, so we can remove transportation barriers as preventing them from getting to the program. So again, you have buses going to pick up children and, transporting multiple children. I've talked to a lot of the other districts in my Lakes Region Directors Group, and all of them have gone remote. So I think given the numbers and just given the unknowns associated with the upcoming months, I see remote being probably our best bet. My concern with that is attendance. I've already had, IEP meetings where ESY has come up and parents have adamantly stated, I don't see my child doing that. We have had parents say we could do some of it, and then we've had some who are fully on board. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what the numbers actually look like, recommended versus attending or participating if it's remote, or if it's in person as well.
So should you decide to make this decision tonight to go to remote, Rebecca would have her special education case managers reach out to the 72 families, find out from them what portions, if any, of the program they would want their child to participate in. Once we gathered all that information, we would then take a look at what we would have to do in terms of hiring staff and what that would look like. We would anticipate, based on the survey data, that some of the families would opt out based on their frustration at this point with remote learning and what its limitations are for some of the children that we have. You know, my recommendation at this point really is to make the decision and to go remote. I think it's probably the most prudent decision. It gives us the time we need to do it right, instead of waiting and doing something haphazardly. Like I said, I don't anticipate anything changing to the extent where we would be able to bring these kids into school and do what a typical ESY program would look like. So that's my recommendation.
Right, thank you, Superintendent. Does anybody on the board want to make a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation? So moved by Scott Burns. Do I have a second by Jeff Savory? I will now open it up for discussion, if there's any discussion. All right, I'll start with Chris first. Chris, do you have any discussion on this?
I think I'm all set.
Thank you, Chris. Deb Brown?
All set.
Thank you, Deb. Susan?
All set.
Thank you, Susan. Cecile? Cecile's all set. Paul? Paul's all set. Scott? Jeff? Jeff's all set. Delaney?
We're gonna lead us to the same technology issues, where we might have to lend out computers for time as well.
Yeah, we do have a plan for that, Delaney, in terms of keeping the Chromebooks out there for the students that do participate in the program.
Delaney's question, in case those didn't hear it, was, will we have to still continue having the Chromebooks out there? And the superintendent has answered that we still would need the Chromebooks out there for the remote learning or the extended school year, the ESY. Any other questions, Delaney? No, Delaney's all set. Okay, can I have a roll call vote, Kathy?
Yes, Susan Hallett Cook?
Yes.
Chris Nealon?
Yes.
Deb Brown?
Yes.
Tim Dow?
Yes.
Delaney Carrier?
Yes.
Cecile Cormier?
Yes.
Jeff Savory?
Yes.
Paul Doucette?
Yes.
And Scott Burns.
Yes.
It is unanimous vote. We will have remote learning for the extended school year ESY program.
Okay, okay. Related to that is our discussion around the Title I summer programming. We talked about this last meeting. We would not be running the full-blown summer camp / Title I programs in the schools. We did survey on tutoring, and you saw those results in your packet. We talked about it as an admin team today, and we felt pretty good about the fact that we would offer something in terms of tutoring remotely versus not doing anything at all for families that we could reach out to. It's likely that we could recruit probably 60 students and have staff to cover that, probably tutor kids up to 2 hours a week, maybe 2 one-hour sessions remotely, groups of 3, something like that. 5 weeks starting in July, ending the first week of August. What we would do would be to reach out to our most needy students first, ask if they were interested, and then probably work our way up the list until we filled all the slots that we had. Expenditures would be roughly $7,000 to $10,000, a little bit more perhaps. We typically spend about $41,000 on this program. So we would have plenty of money left over to do the tutoring in the fall that we talked about last time at all. As an admin team, we just felt like it was better for us to try and do something. None of us felt good about doing nothing, just saying we were going to shut it all down. And we do believe, based on the interest level of the survey, that we would be able to recruit students. And once again, we wouldn't hire staff until we knew what students would participate in the program. So my recommendation is to cancel the summer school programming that we typically do and to replace it with Title I tutoring at the elementary and middle schools. The high school runs its own grant-funded competency recovery program already. So that's what I'm recommending.
Okay, so the superintendent is recommending a Title I tutoring program for this summer. Do I have anybody make a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation? Scott Burns has made the motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation and was seconded by Paul Doucette. We'll now open it up for discussion. Chris Nealon.
All set.
Thank you, Chris. Deb.
All set.
Thank you, Deb. Susan.
All set.
Thank you, Susan. Cecile.
Okay.
Cecile, thank you. Paul.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Paul. Scott. Scott's all set. Thank you, Scott. Jeff. Jeff is all set. Thank you. Delaney. Delaney's all set. Thank you, Delaney. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Susan Hallett Cook?
Yes.
Chris Nealon?
Yes.
Deb Brown?
Yes.
Tim Dow?
Yes.
Delaney Currier?
Yes.
Cecile Cormier?
Yes.
Jeff Savory?
Yes.
Paul Doucette?
Yes.
And Scott Burns?
Yes. It is unanimous. The Title I for this year will go to a tutoring program that the superintendent will work with.
Okay, thank you. Next item, I was contacted by our foreign exchange student coordinator, inquiring about whether or not we would be accepting foreign exchange students this fall. I told her that I would meet with the board and discuss it. This year we had 2 foreign exchange students at the high school. So I will put that out there for us to discuss. They do not have any students lined up yet. They wanted us to let them know whether we were going to be okay with that or not before they started to recruit anybody. I guess my thought process is there's a lot up in the air for September in terms of what it's going to look like. You know, whether or not somebody comes from overseas and would have to quarantine for a few weeks seems to be the protocol before they enter into the population. I mean, I could go either way on this one. I don't see why we wouldn't do it if there were proper procedures in place to quarantine. On the other hand, we might not want to do it based on the fact that it could be up and down type of situation where we're in and out of school based on the COVID issue. So I'll leave it up to you to discuss, and then we can make a decision together.
On their students have access to the recall. Our students, the one from Belgium, was it? Anyway, they were all by their country.
They were.
Yeah, and so it had nothing to do with us. I mean, they could stay in remote learning and party with them all.
Correct.
So I would say, let's go with it and let the students make it up. The students that come, the title card exchange students, let's put a dollar sign on it, but they're not impoverished students. They come from wealthy families. So few extra plane tickets back and forth. It's not going to break their budget.
Can everybody hear Paul? No? Tim, you want to say what Paul said?
Sorry.
That's okay.
All right, so Paul's basically saying that the foreign exchange students that we had here this past year, they were actually called back by their own countries. He supports us to continue doing the program and continue having the foreign exchange program. You know, most of these families come from well-off families, so if they had to leave the United States and travel back to their country, that really wouldn't be an issue. So he supports the foreign exchange program to continue.
And you might add, they could have stayed and done remote learning and tried with their friends.
Yeah, they could have stayed if they wanted to have done remote learning here, but they obviously went back to their countries where they came from. But they could have stayed here if they wanted to. Cecile?
I feel more comfortable as far as not having them come because of the uncertainty of COVID. I don't know if the children should be liable if the children would get
Thank you, Cecile. Is there any other comments that any of the school board members have pertaining to the foreign exchange student program? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I don't think we should shut the door on this yet. So there's two things. I think it's good for the diversity to allow students to come to the school. I can't imagine any foreign exchange students wanting to come to America to participate in remote learning, so it may be a non-issue. In the event that does occur and they do want to experience American life under these circumstances, I think we should still accommodate them through remote learning, if that's their wish.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Deb, do you want to, hold on, Cecile?
What are you experiencing? You're not experiencing a real school adaptation of what typing is all about. If you're copying someone's home, I mean, he would do that remote learning and what have you. So I understand if the school can be run normally, but I still think it's that's an iffy thing. Like you said, maybe we'll want to come to them at the highest rate.
Right. Thank you, Cecile.
Go ahead, Chris. Just to respond to that, there's going to be new testing availability. There's going to be new protocols. I mean, life is going to improve over the next couple of months. So quarantining in somebody's home in the next couple of months may not be the reality that they come into.
Thank you, Chris. Deb, do you want to have any comment?
Yeah, I agree with Chris that we shouldn't shut this down yet. I think that as the coordinator that puts these students into different homes is going to be on top of what each country is doing to allow their students to go out of the country and for coming through customs and all of those things. So I think it's I don't think we should shut it down just yet.
Thank you, Deb. Susan? Sorry to disturb you.
I can't find that mute button all the time. I agree. I just worry a little about if we are letting them in here, are they still going to allow our students there? True meaning of exchange.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any of our students that have gone overseas from here since I've been here, so.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any time either, Susan, in the last 7 years where we've actually sent anybody from our school overseas. I mean, maybe Carrie or Jewel know if I'm off on that. Carrie saying no, Jewel?
It's been a really long time, like over 20 years.
Okay. All right, thanks, Jewel.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Cecilia, you have anything further?
Paul?
All's all said. Scott?
I don't want to say it's on the environment. It's a place, get away. I would still support it, somebody that opportunity going to something.
Okay, so Scott?
Yeah.
Scott doesn't want to shut it down. He wants to continue the program also. I feel it's a good program. There's protocols in place, and there's ways that we can adapt. So, thank you, Scott. Jeff? Jeff's all set. Delaney? Delaney's all set. I do support to continue this program. I think it's something that I don't think it's a decision we need to make tonight because there's no foreign exchange students that have been asked to come to our school yet. But I would like to keep it, and it sounds like a majority of you want to keep this program in a positive and forward base. So I'm going to just make the recommendation that this program will stay in place and that the superintendent will come back. If anybody presents to Principal Charette that they want to come to the high school and teach it, they'll come forward with those names, and the board at that time will make a final decision based on where we are.
Yep, that works. Thank you so much. I'll let her know that, so. Hey, next one is, Work Camp New England postponement. You might recall 2 years ago, we decided to host Work Camp New England. We were going to be hosting them in the district. They were going to be here for 2 weeks to do all kinds of community service in Franklin. They were one of those groups that does that sort of thing. They reached out to me, I think it was last week. Clearly, we're unable to do that at this time. They did ask, and I did say that I would be interested in talking to the board about postponing until next summer, hoping that the conditions are different at this point. Certainly not something that we have to decide like the last thing we just talked about. My hope would be that should the conditions warrant it, we would allow them to come in and do what we were hoping they were going to do this summer and planning to do this summer for the last 2 years. So we can discuss it. I don't think there's any motion that needs to be made. But.
No, I think based upon this, I think once the superintendent has better knowledge of what this may do or whether they may come in, I think at that time the superintendent can bring it forward to the school board to make the decision if we're going to open up the schools up for this work camp. But as of now, obviously with our schools closed, middle school being closed, we're not going to have this, and it's postponed. And I feel that it's the superintendent's responsibility to come back before the board if this program is to bring forward again. So I think that's the best route to take. Chris, do you agree?
Yeah.
Thank you, Deb.
Yes.
Thank you, Deb. Susan? Thank you, Susan. Cecile? Thank you, Cecile. Paul?
Well, yes, I agree. They plan out 3 years ahead of time. They approach 2 years out. So they probably, they will answer, we can postpone. But they've already had somebody lined up for the next time that they actually go out and do it.
They actually said to me that when I told them that we would be willing to host them should the conditions warrant it, they said they would take us up on the offer. So they had not planned out beyond this summer at this point, at least, which I thought was interesting too, Paul. That they hadn't planned the following at this point. So.
Have them come, bring their paper.
Yeah. Paul's question dealt with whether or not the work camp may have already planned out for beyond this year, because they're usually 2 to 3 years ahead. But the message to the superintendent was that they had not planned beyond this year, and if they do have it, that they would come here for next year. So that was the question and the response from Paul to the superintendent back. Supper, if you have any questions? Yeah. Jeff's all set. Delaney's all set. So we will postpone this, and the superintendent will bring it back to the board at a later date if work camp comes back to us.
Great, thank you. Okay, next up is the meals delivery and the current waivers that are available to us. When we talked the last meeting, we talked about the waiver that's being granted to take us from June 9th, which is the last day of school, until the end of June. So I reached out to the bus company to talk to them about the fact that we would like to consider doing this and delivering meals until June 30th. I reminded them that what we were paying them in terms of the contract, and they came back to us and said that they would not charge us any additional money to deliver meals from June 9th to June 30th. So we had Jefferson put together a cost analysis, and we also talked to the food service people to see if they were willing to work until June 30th. And my recommendation is that we continue feeding kids until June 30th. We have just learned that there now is a waiver that will take us through the summer. We're not prepared tonight to discuss that. We will be prepared to discuss that on June 1st when we meet our next meeting. We're going to try and coordinate for this with the summer folks that usually run these programs and have some type of proposal for you for the rest of the summer. But for tonight, we are asking the board to approve us to run meal delivery from June 10th, I guess, this is the first day we're out, June 10th to June 30th.
I move that we approve service from June 10th to June 30th.
Olsett has made the motion to continue food services from June 10th to June 30th.
Second.
Second by Deb. Do we have any discussion? I'll start with Chris. Any discussion, Chris? Thank you. Deb?
No.
Thank you, Deb. Susan?
No, it's a great idea.
Thank you, Susan. Cecile?
Yes.
Any questions?
No,
Paul Doucette?
the only question is, for the summer program, when do we make applications? I heard Dan say June 1st to be the concept, but when do we make applications for food services throughout the month? I heard you say.
Sorry, Paul, I was checking to make sure we didn't get an email.
Oh, you should, I did the same thing. Not working for you. When do we apply for the summer waiver for June 2nd, June 1st? Very, that's the June 1st, but when do we make the application, or is it just a simple matter of saying, we're on?
It's just a simple matter of saying we're gonna do it. We're already approved. It's a federal waiver that we've received. It's already all set. It's just a matter of, do we take it over and run it ourselves? Do we partner with them and provide the transportation and they do the preparation work? So I need to reach out to the organization that does the summer piece to see what type of partnership there might be in terms of doing this. The buses, and like I said, we'll get into this June 1st, but the buses will cost about $517 a day for the summertime deliveries, so it's a significant cost compared to where we're at right now. So there'll be things we have to work through and work out, but Jefferson and I will put that together for you to consider, and on June 1st, you guys can then weigh in and decide what you want to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Scott Burns, any questions? Scott has no questions. Jeff's all set. Delaney's all set. I have no questions either. Well explained by the superintendent, so I need a roll call vote now.
Susan Hallett Cook? Yes. Chris Nealon?
Yes.
Deb Brown? Yes. Tim Dow?
Yes.
Delaney Currier? Yes. Cecile Cormier?
Yes.
Jeff Savory?
Yes.
Paul Doucette?
Yes.
Scott Burns?
Yes.
That passes unanimously. We will continue for food services through the month of June.
Okay, so I will be communicating that out to families tomorrow in a letter to them through email, and we'll blast it out to the whole community so people are aware. And I'm sure that will be well received for sure, so thank you for that. Next up is the 2 MOUs from the Franklin Education Association. We have the MOU regarding teacher evaluation, that we're going to waive the evaluations this year because of the disruption in service starting in March. And then the second one was regarding miscellaneous items regarding privacy and protecting student privacy, and those issues that we talked about before. So I need a motion for those.
I'll make a motion to,
Hold on. Go ahead, Deb.
I'll make a motion to approve the MOU to waive teacher evaluations for this current school year.
The motion has been made to waive the MOU, which is a memorandum of understanding in the matter of the Franklin Education Association and the Franklin School District to waive evaluations for this school year. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Susan. Do we have any further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, I'll need a roll call vote.
Susan Hallett Cook?
Yes.
Chris Nealon?
Yes.
Deb Brown?
Yes.
Tim Dow?
Yes.
Delaney Currier?
Yes.
Cecile Cormier?
Yes.
Jeff Savory?
Yes.
Paul Doucette?
Yes.
And Scott Burns?
Yes.
That motion is passed unanimously, and we will enter into that memorandum of understanding. Now I need a motion on the second memorandum of understanding, and again, this is in the matter between the Franklin Education Association and the Franklin School District, and this is a desire to establish an agreement regarding the use of personal devices and technology by staff during the COVID-19 shutdown.
So moved.
So moved by Deb Brown. Do I have a second? Second by Cecile. Do I have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I need a roll call vote.
Susan Howard Cook,
Yes.
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Delaney Currier. Cecile Cormier. Jeff Savory. Paul Doucette.
No.
And Scott Burns.
Yes.
That memorandum of understanding passes on an 8-1 vote. And we will sign and enter into that memorandum of understanding.
Okay, thank you. The next item is the issue of waiving of days for the teachers, support staff, food service workers, and custodians. We chopped 7 days off the students' calendar year when we changed from to instructional hours from the 180-day schedule. So now we needed to look at what we wanted to do with the rest of our staff. So my recommendation to the board is that we waive 4 days for teachers, support staff, custodians who work straight through, we would give 4 comp days to, and food service workers who work straight through, we would give 4 days comp time to. So that would mean that the last day for students is June 9th. There would then be 3 days. Teachers would be working with principals on planning for next year, those 3 days. Support staff would be working on professional development online. That Rebecca would be putting together primarily for them. Principals would be supporting as well. And that Friday would be the last day of work for the 2021 school year for our school year employees.
So moved.
No, we can do it under all one. Yeah, because it's all.
I can't remember all that, so I just said so moved.
You can do it under all one because it all falls together. We're giving each. Jeff, in case you might want to know, Jeff was wondering whether we had to do this in separate motions. We don't have to because the superintendent's recommendation gives the same amount of days off, even though there is some comp time that is given to custodians and
custodians who work straight through and food service workers who work straight through.
But everybody else is still going to get the 4 days teacher support staff if we agree to it, so we can make it under one motion. Paul, did you make a motion back there? Okay, so Paul Doucette has made the motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation. Do I have a second? Second by Jeff Savory. Do I have any discussion? Seeing no discussion, I need a roll call vote.
Susan Howard Cook,
Yes.
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Delaney Currier.
Yes.
Cecile Cormier. Jeff Savory.
Yes.
Paul Doucette.
Yes.
Scott Burns.
It is passed unanimously. The recommendation of waiving the 4 days set forth by the superintendent is approved.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, and then the last item I have is high school and middle school graduations. So we have talked about this for quite a bit, starting in April. The first thoughts we had about this was to do something at the end of the school year and then wait till summertime to hopefully do a more traditional ceremony. As this has developed, it's unlikely that we would be able to do anything traditional in the summertime. Whether or not beyond that we could or not is anyone's guess. We did survey seniors and senior parents and guardians. We also surveyed middle school parents and 8th grade students. And those survey results are in your packet. You can take a look at those. I think that it's important that we provide the very best that we can that is safe for all of our graduates, but that we also provide some closure to them as well. I think promising them something at the end of July that is unlikely to occur only prolongs some of the issues they're already dealing with in terms of loss. So we have been designing what we're trying to call the best graduation we can design under the circumstances, where we would be, and I don't need to go into all the details, but we're trying to put together the very best we can to keep everybody safe. So what it would look like at the high school would be something like speeches would be pre-recorded, and then we would do a car parade. So parents would line up with students at the middle school. We would perhaps play the speeches, and parents and kids could listen to those speeches in their cars before the parade started. They would parade down Central Street, escorted by police officers. They would arrive at Franklin High School, and at Franklin High School, one at a time, they would come out of their cars with a parent if necessary, or not necessary if wanted to be in the picture. They would walk across the stage. We would still have a stage set up in the front of Franklin High School. We would have staff there, socially distanced. Tim, myself, and Carrie would be on the stage. They would walk across the stage and receive their diploma. They would come down. They would get a nice picture, professional picture, with their parents or guardians if necessary. They would enter their cars and they would escort. They would leave at that point, and then the next car would come up. The big issue with doing anything socially distanced on the field is how do you control them at the end of the ceremony? That's the big discussion with superintendents. That's the discussions with attorneys. That was the discussion I had this morning with the health officer of Franklin. And none of us can come up with any guaranteed way that we would be able to prevent kids from, not maliciously, but from an emotional standpoint, wanting to high five, hug, and gather at the end of their ceremony when the caps go flying. So I would propose that we do that. Nothing would preclude us from doing some type of celebration later on in terms of a barbecue, which they're missing out on. At the middle school, I know Ken has talked about wanting to do a dance at some point later on in the year, those types of things. But I think we set the kids up if we don't do the very best we can at the end of the year here and try to say to them that we're going to do something later that later could be for a very long time. And I just think at that point, kids have moved on and we don't provide them closure that way. So that's what I'm proposing for both the high school and the middle school. I think I'd like to do the high school on June 12th, which was the original date they were supposed to graduate. That will give us the extra week we're going to need because we're having some shipping issues because of the COVID situation. And then we want to do the seniors first on June 12th, and so I think we would probably want to do the middle school on Monday, the 15th of June, and do a similar type of event. I would leave that planning up to the principals and their coordinators, but that's what we need to discuss and hopefully decide, because we do have parents and kids that are ready for us to make a decision on this so they know what's going to happen.
Thank you, Dan. I know Superintendent and I, along with Carrie, had this discussion on Saturday when we were passing out the yard signs to seniors, and trying to come up with a way to give as much of the graduation to our seniors as possible of what's been traditional, especially during the pandemic time that we're in, okay? And I thought it was important, with the stage thing, because that's one of the big things I hear is how, that is a passage for the students that are leaving the high school, is to be able to walk across that stage and receive their diploma. And it is a difficult time right now to try to come out with a solution that is a perfect graduation of what many classes before them have done. But I think in this sense where Carrie's got a pretty good team of people that are her graduating team or teachers that get this put into formation, and it gives the opportunity for that parade to go from the middle school all the way down through Central Street They go into the west entrance of the high school, come around the front of the building. There is more than enough room that we could, we've talked about roping off an area for teachers and standing off to the side of the stage towards the old entrance to the school. We've also talked about bringing the bell up and having one of the teachers, I think Carrie has a teacher in mind already, to have them ring the bell as a student receives their diploma. The photographer, the superintendent and I have talked about it, and that cost will be picked up by the school district. There'll be no cost to the seniors for them to get their senior picture when their cap and gowns on. So that'll help. We'll use some of that with the seniors. You know, obviously they won't be able to do any handshaking with the students. We'd have to kind of put pass the diplomas out across the table, and they'd grab them as they went along, congratulate. But the other thing we talked about was having the class advisors standing at the exit as the cars are driving off to say goodbye to the students, as for the senior class advisors to be there. So Carrie's got some decoration ideas that she's spoken about. She's going to work with Danny Sylvester on. The superintendent and I have spoken about it. I think this is the closest we're going to be able to get to some kind of, you know, similarity without being able to have it on there. You know, what helps in circumstances playing the whole time that this is going on until graduation is over. And again, we fulfill the obligation of the social distance. The parents get to be there. The pictures will be taken of the seniors getting their diploma. They'll get to walk across the stage. The teachers that have been with them all these years will still be able to be there. And we fulfill all the requirements that are set forth in the governor's orders. So I'm going to support this, but I'm going to leave it up to the board to go ahead and weigh in on what your feelings are about this. I'm going to start with Chris. Chris, you're muted.
All the students that I talked to, they all want to walk across the stage. When I talk to the parents want to be able to participate in the car parade. The students want to walk across the stage, even if that means limited attendance, even if that means no attendance by their family. So I think it just shows how important it is to them to be able to walk across the stage. So if we can accommodate both, I'll support that.
Thanks, Chris. And that was a big thing, Chris, when I had discussions with the superintendent and with Carrie on Saturday. That's the same feedback that I've been getting from parents and students, is that just that closure of walking across the stage like everybody else does. Like I said, that's kind of a passage to them. And there's plenty of room in between the two entrances of the school. There's a grassy area there. So there's plenty of room for us to set the stage up there, for them to come across and everything. So I agree. That's one of the things that I had discussions with on Saturday with Carrie and Dan. So thanks, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
Deb?
I support Dan's recommendation.
Thank you, Deb. Susan?
I support the recommendations. I think whatever we can do to make it as normal for them, the better.
Thank you, Susan. Cecile? You want to touch on that, Dan? Because you've kind of had some idea with that.
So the idea would be is we want to try and capture as much of this as we can so that we could put it together so that all the relatives that can't be there would be able to then get a copy of the event. So we will record as much of it as we can, including the speeches beforehand, and most importantly, all the kids coming across the stage. So we'll still be able to announce their name as they come across. Pomp and Circumstance will be playing. We'll see them walk across the stage, off the stage, and then the next child will come up. And then we'll have all of this put together on thumb drives so that each senior will get a thumb drive recording of the entire event. but we're gonna probably try and live stream it as well. We're gonna be at 2 locations. We'll start at the middle school and then we'll end over at the high school, so we'll work that out as well. Yeah.
Paul, do you have any questions? Paul Doucette's all set. Scott, do you have any questions? Thank you, Scott. Jeff? Jeff's all set. Delaney, have any other further questions? Okay. All right, so I'm going to make the recommendation, because no one has any further, so I'm going to make the recommendation that we accept the superintendent's recommendation and move forward as presented by the superintendent for a high school graduation.
Second.
Second by Deb. Thanks, Deb. Okay, we've already spoke about discussion. We have no other discussion with this, so we'll go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Susan Hallett Cook,
Yes.
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Delaney Carrier, Cecile Cormier, Jeff Savory, Paul Doucette, and Scott Burns.
Is unanimous. We will move forward with the high school graduation as presented by the superintendent. Carrie, thank you for your input on this. I know you've been meeting with your graduation advisor, so now you have a little bit more guidance that you can work with. So I know this is big for you, and I know you'll start making out the plans on some of the discussions we had on Saturday. So thank you again, and same with the superintendent. Thank you for moving this forward, and we finally came with a solution that we're all happy with.
Okay. Similarly, and like I said, we'll obviously get this out to families tomorrow in a letter. Similarly, we would think about the middle school 8th grade celebration in a similar fashion. Ken would be planning that with Jay. And that would be on the 15th, Monday the 15th. And we would do something similar as well, knowing that that the seniors is the bigger event, but the 8th graders matter just as much to us as well. So.
Do we want to do the 15th, Dan? Because that's school board night too.
That's a good thing. I didn't think about that one. That is school board night. What a great way to start a school board meeting.
I mean, I could, if the board has no objections, we could move the school board meeting to the following night, Tuesday the 16th. So if there's no objections by the school board, we'll move the school board meeting to Tuesday the 16th so that we can accommodate the 8th grade graduation on Monday the 15th. Okay, I see no objections within the library. Chris, you all set with that?
Yeah, I'm all set with that.
Deb?
Yep.
Thank you, Susan. All right, Susan's all set with it. So to the administration, our school board meeting in June will be June 16th. That way there, we are able to accommodate the 8th grade graduation without any interruptions. So that'll work out for you and Jay. Okay, so we need so I'm going to make a formal recommendation or a formal motion that we accept the recommendation of the middle school graduation plan as set forth by the superintendent. It will look like the high school graduation. There will be some work done on it by Principal Darcy and Jay, but we'll using the same protocol for the middle school graduation. So I make a motion to accept that recommendation.
Second.
Second by Deb. Do we have any discussion upon it? Seeing no discussion, I'll take a roll call vote.
Susan Hallett Cook,
Yes.
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Delaney Carrier,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier,
Yes.
Jeff Savory,
Yes.
Paul Doucette,
Yes.
Scott Burns.
Yes. It is unanimous. The presentation or plan set forth for the middle school graduation passes by a 9-0 vote.
Okay, and I think that's probably enough for one night.
All right, we have late items or other. So just for other, before we end, I just want to make sure none of our administrators have anything they want to bring forward to the board, so I'm going to start with you, Carrie. Carrie, do you have anything to bring before the board? Carrie's saying no. Thank you, Carrie. Peter?
Thank you.
I do not. Thank you, though.
Thank you, Peter. Ken?
I'm good, thank you, and thank you for the support of the arbitration. We already have an army of people who are coming up with some ideas, and they were making suggestions, so it's very big relief. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Jay?
Lost this one, too.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Toby?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Toby. Jewel?
I'm all set, thank you.
Thank you, Jewel. Susan? Susan Blair? Susan?
Frozen.
I think she froze up.
Oh, you're frozen, Susan. All right, Rebecca?
I'm all set, thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Robin?
All set, thanks.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you for getting my computer back up, Robin.
You're welcome.
Okay. Superintendent Legallo, do we have, or Jefferson, I'm sorry, Jefferson, did you have anything further, Jefferson?
I'm all set, thank you.
Thank you, Jefferson. All right, Superintendent Legallo, do we have any public participation of any phone calls or emails sent in?
Nope.
Okay, we have none. There is nothing further to be brought before the,
I did talk to Dan earlier this afternoon about, and he had recommended that the article that to get, starting.
Amber, yeah.
That article be, forwarded to the council members. I think it would be good education.
Yeah, Cecile Cormier's question is, she spoke to the superintendent earlier today. There was an article that was sent out on Amber Rue that was a very well-written, very nice article. I'm saddened to see that Amanda gave her resignation. That is very heartbreaking, believe me. I'm sure Ken and Jay feel the same way by far, and I know Barbara does, because I see Barbara shaking her head the whole time. But I do wish Amanda well. But yes, we will forward that letter or that newspaper article to the city manager to be distributed to the city councilors. Thank you, Cecile. Okay, seeing with nothing further to be brought before the board, I make a motion that we adjourn this school board meeting.
Second.
Second by, I think, Susan. I gotta do the roll call though, guys.
Okay, Susan Hallett Cook,
Yes.
Chris Nealon,
Yes.
Deb Brown,
Yes.
Tim Dow,
Yes.
Delaney Currier,
Yes.
Cecile Cormier, Jeff Savory,
Yes.
Paul Doucette,
All the set?
Scott Burns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can take them back. You don't.
7:50, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you
Thank
soon.
you. I'm going to stop the
Bye,
live
good to see you all.
stream.
Stay safe.
We maxed out at 43 participants. Good meeting.